For the last 90 days, I've been trying to be as productive as Stephen Bartlett by stealing his secret diary of a CEO time system. This life-changing system is so simple, yet no one seems to know about it. As a matter of fact, the productivity system he uses is directly inspired or stolen from the one and only Steve Jobs, but we'll discuss that later in this video. So here's what to expect. I will take a deep dive into the Diary of a CEO time method, which reveals how Stephen became so successful through 1% daily compounding. Then I will share my personal systems I built on top of his to achieve perfect productivity that fits my personal needs. And last but not least, I will share how these 90 days have transformed my life and how implementing this system might transform yours. And let me just add to that, I went from someone who sucked at planning and had a piling to-do list to someone who has been consistently planning every single day and then actually commit to those plans. So let's get into it. To understand the Diary of a CEO time system, we need to start at the foundation of how he treats his time. This foundation can be found in his first book, titled Happy Sexy Millionaire. In chapter 19 of the book, he asks a thought-provoking question to the reader. If you could see your precious, irreplaceable time pouring away through the neck of a sand timer, would you really spend hours mindlessly scrolling through social media timelines? And the key concept behind this question is this idea. If I placed a sand timer in front of you containing 300,000 hours of time and that sand timer followed you wherever you went, it would undeniably change how you make your decisions, what you give your time to, and how you fundamentally live your life. This idea might sound familiar as well.
If you live each day as if it was your last, someday you'll most certainly be right. It made an impression on me, and since then, for the past 33 years, I have looked in the mirror every morning and asked myself, if today were the last day of my life, would I want to do what I am about to do today?
Take a second and genuinely try to answer. How do you think your behavior would change? Because that's the exact foundation you will need to apply his time system. Now's the question, how did he apply this concept into his own life? He bought a sand timer for his desk at work, for his mantelpiece at home, and for his bedside table. Here's mine, by the way. I've got to admit, flipping the sand timer a few times per day and then watching my time slowly pour away helps me to visually see time and move with a stronger sense of urgency. And when this strong foundation is set, only then it's time to apply the Diary of a CEO time system to your life. And this system is actually a diary.
You are now ready for the 1% system.
The 1% diary, which is designed and produced by the Diary of a CEO, perfectly encapsulates how Stephen structures his day for maximum productivity. As you can see, a diary page is divided in 3 very simple sections: your 1%, your to-dos, and time blocking. However, all the magic happens in the first block of the page. This is where you prioritize a maximum of 3 tasks that are directly linked to goals you have set earlier in the diary. Then, only after you've picked a maximum of 3 main tasks, you move on to the other fluff, like your regular to-dos, the ones that don't matter that much. For example, this is what I did. My main non-negotiable task was always focused on YouTube and thus related to my YouTube goal. It would consist of scripting, editing, or video research. Might not sound like mind-blowing new information, but hear me out. The magic happens when you truly treat it as a 1% non-negotiable task. So let's break that down. The 1% means that the task, however small, should focus on 1% growth. Just 1%. Do not give yourself a task you will not complete with 100% certainty. And that also clarifies the non-negotiable part. You need to take completing this task so fucking serious that even if World War III happened today, you would still complete this task. Bringing this back to my personal 1% non-negotiable of working on YouTube, this simply meant an absolute minimum of 15 minutes of work to complete the task. And it's a valid point to think that no magical work will happen in those 15 minutes. But the truth is otherwise. Generally, each and every time I do this, I never ever stop after just 15 minutes. It's this initial promise to myself of, I'll only work on this for 15 minutes, then I'm free to do as I'd like. And then, when I'm busy, I enter flow state and I just keep on going. And do you see how this will start to add up? 1% compounding does not just apply to interest on your money. It also applies to achieving your goals. As I mentioned earlier in this video, this simple idea is very similar to the method that Steve Jobs used to get so much done at Apple. He would call it signal versus noise. Kevin O'Leary, who worked directly with Steve Jobs, recently explained this on the DOAC podcast. Let's quickly go over this clip. Yo Jarvis, can you pull up the clip?
As you wish, sir.
There's a concept that he understood that very few people focused on back then in the early 90s of signal-to-noise ratio. His vision of signal was the top 3 to 5 things you have to get done in the next 18 hours. You're going to get those 3 things or those 5 things done that you have deemed critical for your mission. They must get done today. Anything that stops you from doing that is the noise. So this signal-to-noise ratio to be successful for Steve Jobs was 80-20. 80 signal, 20 noise.
This idea perfectly aligns with the purpose of the 1% diary. Separate the signal, aka your 1%, from the noise, which are your regular to-do tasks that don't directly contribute to your goals. Of course, every person has different needs. That's why, after using this diary for 90 days, I built personal systems on top of the diary system to get even more out of my day. Let's call them the Pear Eco-Systems. And the first system I added is a concept from Sam Ovens called Plan Tomorrow Today. The name says it all. Every night before bed, I plan the next day in detail. No more last minute planning in the morning or throughout the day. For me, that means first I pick my 1%. Those are the tasks that truly move the needle for me. Second, I write down my regular to-dos. Third, and this is what made all the difference for me, I time block everything. Every single task gets a specific hour assigned. I learned doing this the hard way. See, I actually bought the diary twice already. Yeah. And the first time I used it was a flop. I would just add lots of stuff to the to-do list without specifically planning them in for the day. Then I would just hope they would eventually get done. Of course, that rarely happened because without a time slot, I simply would not commit to getting the task done. Also, this does not mean that I literally assign a time slot to every single thing on my to-do list. Oftentimes, I would just group the lesser important stuff together and plan like 1 hour in for clearing my to-do list. But the 1%, those always get locked in, protected and non-negotiable. Now, system 2. As I just mentioned, I bought the diary twice, and the second time I did everything right. Time blocked everything, stuck to the plan, but I ran into a problem: portability. See, this diary, it's quite thick. And I don't always want to carry it everywhere. So I turned the 1% diary into an app. Well, more like an app shortcut. It's a simple template that perfectly matches the 1% diary layout. It has the same 3 sections: 1%, to-dos, and time blocking. But it's always available on my iPhone, iPad, and MacBook. And this made all the difference. I realized that the easier it is to access the diary, the more likely I am to consistently use it. And digitizing it literally removed all friction for me. That is why since digitizing the diary, I think I have not missed a single instance of planning my next day. And by the way, if you think you would also prefer an app version of the diary, I'll link the full guide and the template below in the description of this video. Let's move on. The third system is to start with the end in mind, and that means to properly identify your 1% tasks for the next day. Before writing them down, simply start with the following question: in what way will this make me grow 1% after completion? This question has prevented me various times from committing to a task that might contribute to 1% growth, but is not the highest leverage task I could pull for the day. I'll give you an example. Let's say I have this sick idea for a YouTube video and it requires me to dabble with After Effects for some cool animations. One thing I could be doing is to research, learn, and study videos on how to use After Effects. That would for sure contribute to 1% growth since I am learning. However, a higher leverage and more efficient task that would contribute even more than 1% growth is to just start with creating the video, and as I run into specific problems with creating the animations, only then to figure out the solution. And to really lock in consistency on those 1% tasks, I added a fourth system. This one is directly inspired by Steve Jobs' idea of signal versus noise. What I did is to treat morning as my signal block and the rest of the day as the noise block. What does this look like in practice? Well, for me, the first thing I started to do is wake up a bit earlier than usual, like 6 or 7 a.m. And this led me to free up more time to prioritize my first work block in the morning for YouTube. Then I would usually, after 1 hour of deep work, move on to my morning workout. After the workout, I would take it easy and deal with the noise part of my tasks. So to summarize, start the day off with your 1% tasks and then move on to the other stuff. And last but not least, the fifth system. After implementing all of this, I subconsciously created some sort of feedback loop. I realized after doing this enough days in a row that I began to understand what does work and what doesn't work for me. For example, some people hate morning workouts, but I absolutely love them. I love to get it done in the first few hours of the day and essentially just get it over with. And I would say that I wouldn't have gotten to this conclusion if I hadn't committed to doing a morning workout so consistently for that many days in a row. And this also gave me the space to compare my morning workouts versus my evening workouts and realize that I actually have a strong preference. And that is what the blank space on the 1% planner should be used for. Just reflect on your day and simply note down what worked and what didn't work. How did you feel during certain tasks and what did you dislike doing? This daily feedback loop will massively increase the quality of your output, and you'll actually get to know yourself better since you'll start making it a habit of reflecting on how you felt during certain tasks, which means you'll also get an increased quality of life as a bonus because you'll eventually start to prioritize doing more of the stuff that you like to do. Now let's talk about what changed for me after these 90 days. And I should start with that it feels like small compounding of various transformations instead of one big transformation, just like the idea of 1% compounding. First off, I think one of the most significant improvements I made is that I'm finally consistent with my input on YouTube. Unfortunately, not on my output yet, as I'm still struggling to upload every week at the moment, but there is progress. Eventually, I will take it from one video per 3 to 4 weeks to one video per week. I am, however, working on this channel every single day. That includes lots of learning and really trying to figure out the direction I want to take this channel in. I've been working on this channel without missing a day for 60 plus days, and I keep track of this habit in the Atoms app. Secondly, by consistently working on this channel, I'm also once again starting to really figure out what I do and what I do not like to make videos about. I'm aiming for a channel of which working on it feels like play, and it does feel like I'm a few steps closer to that ideal. A third side effect is that saying no to stuff became way easier. Since I plan in nearly all my hours in a day, random interruptions would just not happen anymore, since I was committed to following the schedule that I made. And the last benefit is probably the most interesting. If you know Parkinson's law, then you know that if you have a deadline for a task within 1 hour, you will take the full hour to complete the task. Well, sometimes I would assign 1 hour to a task that no matter what I try, takes 2 hours or more. Like for going to the gym, I would schedule 1 hour, but fail to include travel time, taking a shower afterwards, and getting ready. And after messing up my schedule a couple of times in a row, I slowly started to get more accurate with allocating just the right amount of time per task. Hello?
Jason, I've been watching your progress.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I finally stopped wasting time every day.
Not only that, you've learned to master your time.
Master my time? Does that mean...
Open the last page of the diary.